My name's Vince.
My name's Noons.
I'm Nick.
And I'm also Nick. And we're going to tell you about some indie stuff. I have a question. Does that sound a little bit harsh? A little bit vindictive? A little bit rude? I'm not sure.
It was a little rude.
Yeah, thank you. See, like, I felt a little bit. I felt like I was attacking.
You sounded a little bit like an aggressive
it was like tone.
ad.
It was like the tone of it.
See, you know,
I
that's
feel
what
like
I
it was
feeling.
an ad that was kind of aggressive towards
People. Yeah, no. Okay.
People.
Can I get another run through on that one?
another run through.
Nope, doing a
Give it to
5.
him. Go. All right, nice.
Hey, welcome to the Espos
Perfect.
Podcast. Oh my God, these guys. Welcome to the Espos Podcast. I'm Nick. You heard these other guys. I fucked up again. Whoops.
Nice.
Nice.
Welcome to the Espos Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about indie games. I don't have anything fun to say about indie games because they're already fun.
There it is, folks. Indie games, third time's the charm. Are we keeping it
takes
all
me a
in?
good
You'll
while.
That's how
find
indie
out.
games usually work, though, right?
Anyways.
Third time's the charm.
So, what are we talking about?
We're talking about indie games today.
Nice.
So if you guys have prepared a list of indie games, we'd love to hear it. But first, I want us to define indie games. What are indie games to you? And how could someone else define indie games? Or like, what's a good general idea on what indie games are?
Give it to me, Nick. Little Nick, not Big Nick.
All right. So, in my opinion, indie games are categorized as games that are made by either a single person or a very small team or a very small company that creates a game, and it can be published by like a big company, but the big company is just a publisher, not the company that actually produced it or anything like that. That's what I think is an indie game, or what makes an indie game.
I
So,
like it.
So
I
like
like
a big publisher can come through and like hire a new like up and coming development studio to make a game, and you would consider that an indie game?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say that because it's not directly that major company making it.
Okay. I have
Okay.
a question.
Also, it provides there's like less traction for it.
I have a question though. I'm gonna throw this out there. Here's a hypothetical. Let's say an indie studio gets hired by a major studio to make a game. Is that new game of theirs an indie game, or is it a major studio game?
Still an indie game in my eyes.
Half-Life Alyx. Indie or major studio game?
Half-Life Alyx.
Made
That's
by
a
the
major
team that
studio
made
game.
Firewatch.
Yeah.
That
you.
is a major studio game.
Yeah, but
hands down.
Firewatch, the team that made Firewatch is a small team that was hired by a big studio to make a game.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, that's still.
But
That's,
is it
that's
an
still,
indie game?
Yeah, Firewatch is an indie game.
Yeah.
But is Half-Life Alyx an indie game?
No.
No, because with how much production and
Because
money.
Yeah, they were hired by Valve, right? So then they were just like funded by Valve. They were given all these resources that they didn't have before.
Well, so I feel like also we could get into the discussion of, is Banjo-Kazooie 1 an indie game?
Banjo
Super
Kazooie,
Mario.
or are you talking about Ukulele? Because
No.
Ukulele is an indie game based off of Banjo
Ukulele
Kazooie.
is, but Banjo-Kazooie was made by Rare, right? Are we considering Rare like a not big company?
Well, they are now.
So Rare, what in my eyes, Rare was a big company because of how many games they've made back in the day.
Jackpot.
Dude,
Before
they made so many
Banjo-Kazooie?
games. The big games that started off with was the Donkey Kong Country series.
Okay,
Oh,
would
true.
you consider
Shit.
Donkey Kong Country at the time of its release an indie game? Or at what point do we start defining studios as indie studios? Because
I was gonna
arguably,
say that.
I would say nearly every studio that published a game for the SNES was an indie studio.
I
Does that
like
make
to
sense?
think
I would
I
ass-
like to think the original games were the first indie games.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so
Yeah.
all those guys, the OGs, the big boys of today, were the original, not only the original indies, but the original big boys. So
Okay, so I have a thought. I would like you guys to follow me on this journey. So original games, so like for Atari, right, are the indie games before big studios, right? So let's say E.T. was an indie game. So you're telling me E.T., an indie game, nearly bankrupted and ruined all the video games forever? So therefore, indie games are bad?
Indie games are bad.
Thank you, Nunes.
that's not true.
Indie games are bad.
You don't like indie games?
I love indie games. Don't get me wrong. There are so many good indie games. The
So
problem
many.
is, like, indie
So
games.
you're just generalizing.
Well, indie games used to be really good for the video game industry and for Steam, I guess. They're really good for Steam.
Yeah.
But like now big publishers, big development studios realize, oh, people are going to pay for like that indie garbage over there. We don't have to try as hard. Because there really is a lot being put into the quote unquote indie category now. And it's not just like startups making their first game. They're all super about making video games. They want to make something that's really good, that's going to be like, you know, a classic to to some niche people. It's not like those are few and far apart now. Now you've got all of these people who are just trying to pump out a video game to make money, because if it looks nice, at the very least, people are going to give you $20 and you're going to get like 50 people to buy that video game before it ever actually releases and make $5,000.
That's fair. But is something like that like really worth their time?
Depends. I mean,
It's not their time technically.
yeah.
Well, I mean, like you said, if someone spends their time making some crappy game and it looks good, and like they go with the stylistic, simplistic, cell shaded, whatever look that is really popular now, and then they make, let's say, 10 grand, 20 grand. I mean, like, how long did it take them to make that game? And like, I mean, kudos to them, right? Like, as long as we don't fund it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but like, how long did it take them to make it? Probably not very long with the SDKs for I can't think right now. Unity.
think harder. Think harder.
No, okay, so I have like a point to throw in there. I think that like when it comes to indie games, it doesn't seem like there's that same level of creativity towards that game that you used to see. Like let's I mean it's simple, but let's take Minecraft for example, right? Minecraft was an indie game, and while not necessarily creative, it gave you the sense of creativity, you know, and it became like a huge craze. Now let's fast forward to 2021. The most could you name the most creative indie game that you've played in the last 6 months or a year?
Most creative indie game.
Or something that
Creative?
is
Okay, so like
outside the norm of what you or like outside what you might see in that same like genre.
in my opinion, I think indie games are possibly some of the most creative. Honestly,
I'm not gonna say otherwise, because you're right. They are some of the most creative. I'm just asking, in the space of indie games, what was the most creatively designed indie game that you've played in the last 6 months to a year?
Slay the Spire.
Phasmophobia.
I really like. Yeah, I really.
But
like
I feel like
Phasmophobia.
I feel like that innovation, when
But
it
what
comes
innovation
to
is there?
well,
it's a ghost
creating-
hunt. It's like Clue, but funner.
Well, so
More
the
fun,
innovation
as the
of
young ones say.
Phasmophobia is that the game is interactive with your voice, especially
Okay.
within these new updates that they just released, where literally if there's a hunting going on from a ghost and you say something, the ghost will go to your area.
Oh my
It's
god!
not like
Thank God.
Yeah, they've added so many just nicer things or more.
Okay, so I
We
understand
getting
what
down
you're
on
saying
some
about like
phasmophobia. I'm just saying that right now.
the creative updates that they're adding to the game. But when you look at the game and I tell you it's a ghost hunting game with voice interaction, is your first thought that is a well-designed game or that is creatively designed?
100%.
Just for me
think-
telling you that it's a ghost hunting game where it has an in-game voice chat and the game kind of interacts with your voice.
Yes,
Hey, can I-
100%.
Yeah. I think if you tell me, hey, you should play this game, it's a ghost hunting game, and you're like a guy who's hunting ghosts and finding clues, yeah, I think that's really creative. Like, tell me another game that's similar to that.
Ghost
So
Hunters International
actually,
for the PS3.
let me also blow your mind a little bit here. Ghost hunting game that interacts with your own comms, like the NPCs interact with your own comms. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier. You could tell your teammates what to do with your Xbox 360 microphone.
But
Didn't
is
have
it
that game.
is it a clue style find out what the thing is? Like a
No, I just thought
Not
it
a
was funny that
mystery
you
game.
were also describing Tom
Oh,
Clancy's
that's fair.
Ghost
That's
Recon
fair.
Future Soldier with that
By the way,
tagline.
Did
you know you
I'm
can
gonna-
interact
okay.
with a game with your voice?
See, so that's the thing. Okay, so
Hey,
that
you
in- like that-
Pikachu.
okay.
The original Tom Clancy.
No, okay, so that's kind of what I'm getting at is like,
Mhm. Well,
while
I
that's
think
that's a great innovation. I don't think that's necessarily new because
I don't think
integration
the
with
Go
for it.
ahead. I'm sorry. That was me.
I don't think that the innovation of having the game interact with your voice is necessarily creative. I think how they did it is creative, and I think it's really interesting. But I can list a good grip of games like Noons that also use voice interaction, and a lot of them are
Yeah,
from
but it's
like
not
the
as
Xbox
cool
360.
though.
So let me put it
You're
like
right.
this. I don't think the idea of voice comm on your game being used is innovative. I think using it to talk to ghosts in a video game, not to like just scare you or like control or navigate your ghost, but to lure
get
a ghost out to
information.
find clues to try to
Yeah.
communicate with a ghost is totally interactive. Like I could say like for VR, right? Like I could tell you like putting on VR and hitting stuff with sticks. That's not creative at all. That's probably every VR game. But if I told you, oh, this is actually a rhythm game and you have to hit the stick, like the block to the music, like
I think that's pretty tight and pretty
that's
creative.
pretty
on how they do it.
creative. How
Yeah, I
many
think
how
it's-
many rhythm games have you played like that? Like
None.
probably
mean,
not many.
There's
Two.
that one where you drum. And it's the Japanese
Taiko.
drum one. Taiko. I
Okay,
I
3
want to
then.
order a Taiko drum for my Switch.
They're
For
expensive.
Switch,
I
yeah.
know.
Oh,
Like-
the old ones are expensive.
Anyways,
Yeah.
not to get off track, but I think
Mhm, mhm.
I agree with you. And full transparency, I'm not a huge fan of Phasmophobia, mostly
Yeah.
because I'm a big old sissy. But it's not
It's
my jam.
Definitely scary at first.
But like I
it gets
will
cheese.
agree with you. I think it's creative in a lot of aspects. I just think, and I think this is going back to what Noon said earlier about indie games. I feel like there's a certain level of polish that I wish was there that you get out of certain indie games.
Yeah.
You know, and to like
I
transition
think the
to
ones that like really take off though do have that polish, and I think like what Noons was saying is like there's all these crappy games that are like people like making a quick buck, but I mean like
100%.
but the ones that do have that polish and that do really well are the ones that like make more than just a quick buck and
Mhm.
like
They're usually
They're
multiple
beautiful.
dollars.
yeah, they really pay off and it's worth your money,
And-
right? Like Ori and the
yeah.
Blind Forest, Hades, right?
I wouldn't
like
even- okay.
Celeste.
Would
Enter
you-
the Gungeon.
Do you still consider Ori an indie game?
Yeah.
I
That's a
do.
team of 3.
That like I have a list, and I made sure to not include like at least 5 games because I knew Vince would want to talk about those games,
Yeah.
like either in detail or give his main opinion on them.
Yeah.
And
That's
Ori is
one of
right.
those.
Moon Studios. That's like literally a team of 3. Like
So
it's
yeah.
bananas.
I know I've kind of been against the whole indie thing. That's not to say that I don't
Mhm.
like indie games.
What do
I-
you mean by against?
I feel like I've been presenting arguments against or attacking
yeah.
indie games, and that's not
No,
to say
no,
that
I
I
think-
don't like indie games. I just
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think there's
I think
a lot
it's
of things
totally
that I
like
want.
totally good to like pull the argument aside. Like, are they as creative as we're making them out to be, or like, you know what I mean? I think it's good to like.
And
Yeah.
while indie games are creative in their own way, I'm gonna throw this out there. Hollow Knight, which is by far one of the best and well polished indie games,
Easily.
is not as creative in terms of integration of its systems as say Phasmophobia is. But
100%.
I don't think
Different
the
strokes for different
creativity-
folks, though.
But I don't.
Some people
would-
just like basic platformers, and does it make it a
No,
bad
that's
game?
not-
No, 100% not. Just
No, but
because
I
there's
think-
not more to it, or how basic it is, doesn't make it bad, though.
I think Big Nick brings a good point though, and like Hollow Knight is not creative in terms of mechanics. It
No,
is very
100%
bare bones.
not.
It is basic, but it's also done very innovatively. Like not innovatively, sorry. Like it's executed like well,
Yeah.
and it's polished, and it's themed very well. I think theming has like
Yeah.
a big plays a big part in Hollow Knight.
And
Not
with-
to
go for it.
not to like so I have three things. Not to press down too hard on it, but like the Hollow Knight soundtrack is so good.
100%.
It is so
It's
good.
oh my god, it's so
Honestly,
good.
Absolute
Can we talk?
fire.
Can we
Yeah.
just mention like small amounts that indie games have some of the best sound engineering behind any of it?
Mm-hmm.
Like name one indie game that doesn't have great music that isn't good. Like the
Limbo.
game as a whole. Is the game good?
Stanley Parable.
The Stanley
Stanley
Parable, hell
Parable.
yeah.
But let's take okay. Not to get super far down the rabbit hole here, but like let's take a
Go down the
big
rabbit hole.
let's go and let's check at Supergiant Games,
Mm-hmm.
who have made 4 of some of the best, if not the best, indie games. Nunes, I heard you laugh. I'll fight you. Better not be laughing. Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and Hades all have some of the best sound design and music in any of the indie game scene.
Dude,
Am I
and you know
wrong?
what's crazy? I didn't even know Transistor was made by the same people who made Hades, and I love Transistor. Like, Transistor is a phenomenal game. Like, it's beautiful, it's fun, it's so cool. Like,
The aesthetic, the Art Deco sci-fi, I don't see it enough to hate it. And I love Art Deco already. Like, give me more Art Deco games.
Yeah, when Bastion came out, I started following those people, that development studio, and I've played everything that they've released ever since. Like they make some really good games.
yeah, they're not playing around.
No.
I love how creative they are. It really does, like, it's a breath of fresh air for indie games. What I love is how like creative they're willing to be, because everyone knows like I'm over like a lot of games because they're just so like samey.
Mhm.
So it's really nice to play like an indie game, and like while a lot of them are platformers, yeah, it's like they go into like these fantasy themes that it seems like
No
bigger
one else
studios
wants to go
no one
into.
wants to touch, and it's like I'm a nerd. Like I want to play some fantasy stuff. I want to fight some dragons. I want to do like some cool mythical, like Lovecraftian stuff. Like get me in there, and like
So-
we can't do that when I'm playing like Call of Duty or like
Baldur's Gate 3.
I don't know, anything big, not just Call of Duty, like lots of stuff.
So I want to ask a question about Supergiant Games specifically, and this is going to lead me off into a small give me an answer tangent. So I hope you guys are along with this. But Supergiant Games, indie studio still?
Wait,
Are they an indie studio still?
I honestly I have no idea what their
In
team
your-
looks like.
No, I mean, like, in your opinion, is Supergiant still an indie studio? And would
I
you treat them
think-
like an indie studio?
I don't know. I would consider them like I don't know their team. Like how many employees do they have over there? I think
anywhere
for me,
between
a
30
big-
to
a
60.
big- How many?
no, number of
it's-
employees 20.
Is it?
Yep, 20 people.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And each of their team doubles on jobs. So the guy who
I would consider them in an indie studio. I think because I guess the reason I would consider them an indie studio is because like while they're probably all doing really well, like one bad play could like really screw them over. Like it can they're still not so successful that they can make a game and mess up. You
Platinum
know what I mean?
Games, indie studio?
No.
Not even with the first Bayonetta game, you wouldn't consider them an indie studio?
No. They made
Why?
freaking Beautiful Joe.
Yeah, but I mean, back then, Beautiful Joe could have been considered an indie game. We never answered this question. At what point do we start considering games not made by big studios indie games? And do we
When
consider...
the studio gets big.
When does the pile become a hill?
But like,
It's kind of like when does your favorite band stop being like a local band?
Yeah, underground.
Okay. Let's.
Yeah.
You want to talk about bands? Fall Out Boy. When they joined Fueled by Ramen, they were no longer a local band. When they joined a big label.
Platinum has 274
You could say that about Paramore also.
studios.
And Panic at the Disco.
Exactly. They no longer were local bands at that point.
No, because they were
joined
mainstream.
the label. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
But at the
that's
same
thing, is,
time,
like,
you
Platinum
kind of
Games
sorry.
still isn't owned by a major studio.
Yeah.
No, but how much work they've put in to make a name out of themselves.
But I mean, what about Supergiant Games? Do they not put in the same amount of work to be considered a major studio?
I've never heard of that game company, honestly, until Hades.
So you're telling me you've never heard of Bastion or Transistor?
I think he's heard of the games. He just didn't care about the company. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I didn't even realize that Supergiant was the same ones that made Transistor for a while.
But if you told me that the same studio that made Bayonetta also made Beautiful Joe, I wouldn't have believed you.
They also made Nier Automata.
Yeah. Sure. Freaking I don't think it's about how many people know them, right? Like I still consider I don't care how many people know who Toby Fox is. Like Undertale will always be
Undertale will always be one of the most well-known indie games of all time. But it's still an indie studio.
And I would say like even Minecraft is still an indie game. It just blew up. You know what I mean? Like
and it's currently owned by Microsoft, but
correct. But it wasn't, right? So like
also what's I hate this, and this is something I really, really don't like. And this kind of turned me off from Hades a little bit when it first came out. Was early access indie games.
Honestly, I think that's fine.
I'm the anti-early access player.
No, I don't like if an indie studio puts out a game that's in early access. I mean, like Hollow Knight was early access.
Yeah.
Hades was early access. Phasma is still early access.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, Supergiant's only early access game was Hades. And it feels like they were outsourcing because they are a small studio to have people play the game.
Yeah.
And like test the bounds to break. Right?
Yeah.
And that's fine.
I think that's good, yeah.
But I have a question, Noons, as a former QA guy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that? Outsourcing like game testing into early access.
Well, that's usually not something that continues to happen, especially with the place that I worked at. I'm still under NDA technically, but whenever you have a game that comes out that is like considered indie because the B team was working on it, they only have 10 people, they just made a game. You still have QA testers, but it going into early access or into like a paid subscription model, it's also good for the game. I think early access is very good for video games. I don't like it when they do like what Baldur's Gate 3 is currently doing, where you still have to pay $60 to buy the game that isn't complete, and then you have to like help them through making the game as an early access tester, quote unquote. You know, I got paid for doing that at a big studio, so I'm not gonna. I feel like it's not my job as just a gamer, somebody who wants to play your game for fun, to essentially QA your game. But on top of that, I also don't like when these big developers decide to just chuck things into early access just because they don't want to spend as much money on the game up front. That's a lot of what you'll see is where they'll be like, all right, go into early access, make some of the money back. We'll spend some more money as it's making money to kind of make a machine, and eventually the game will be done. And people will get to play the thing that they bought. So I like it when, like, what's a good example? Let me go to my Steam library because it's full of good examples. Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is a good example of early access done well, where even though it's kind of the style of game that it's in, the early access still helped them to create new cards, balance the current cards, and make a whole new character.
Yeah.
I agree, because I think because when that game goes into early access, right, it's less about finishing the game and more about, like, is it working how we intended, right? Like, is it like broken? They're tweaking it, right? They're fixing cards, they're adding cards. Oh, this was missing, we needed this. A lot of people like this. Versus something like you said, like Baldur's Gate. It's like, clearly they're not done, right? Like, you didn't even get to the point, like, they're not just balancing spells, they're still like, the game's not done. Like,
I believe what they said back in September. They even brought it up. They were like, we're going to put this out there for people to play. It is not finished. We repeat, it is not finished. But that, like, you shouldn't be putting that.
Yeah.
That is not, that is more than just a AAA game. That is an entire franchise on the line.
That's like why I'm not big on early access too. And I like agree with Nunes on that, is like, they need to like pay for, like, that's the risk you get when you go into this business, right? Like, finish the game. People don't want to pay $60 to help you finish the game. Like, it's baloney, especially now with the way things are, like microtransactions, things like that. Like, everyone wants to like constantly have you paying for something, and they still don't even want to finish the game. Like, are you insane? Like, no, like, we want a fully polished game, because most of the time when I buy something early access, I'm done with it before it's even done.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, they're not finished. I'm done. And now they're going to release it 2 years later. And, like, what? I have to go back and replay it again? Like, no. That's generally why I don't play stuff in early access, which is unfortunate, because a lot of things get, like, really popular and, like, really fun. And the traffic happens with, like, good potential games before it's even done. And then by the time it's done, no one's playing it anymore. It's really unfortunate. Like, I feel like Phasmophobia is going to hit that problem. Whereas, like, well, it did. Like, it was super popular. It's not done, right? And then they're going to add stuff and good improvements and changes. But it's like, what are the chances of it blowing up again when it actually releases? You know what I mean?
I think it really depends on the team, or, like, the game itself, not the team. But, like, the game itself, like, with Hades had a great, like, startup with its early access, and people loved it. The music was great, and the story up to the point where you could get to was great.
Yeah.
And then it was silent for almost 6 to 8 months. The Theseus Minotaur update, people came back to it. People played it. It got traction for a little bit, and then it just all of a sudden blew up when it released. It was everywhere.
I think the key difference, though, is that it didn't blow up while it was in early access. So
And
I think that's the part that made a difference. But it's like Phasmophobia blew up, right? Like, already. Like, it's done. Like, I highly doubt when it's quote-unquote finished, it's going to be like, oh, everyone's playing Phasmophobia again. No, I don't think it's going to.
I think it's going to have that same, like, replayability in certain groups.
Yes.
But I don't think we'll be seeing it pop up on Twitch.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying. I think you nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
Like, we'll probably go back to it and play a couple games. Yeah, definitely. Like, why not? Like, it already sounds funny. You just told me there's more, like, fun stuff. Like, let's freaking do it.
I did the same thing with
They
Risk
just
Parade
add
too.
like more stuff to it. So there's always going to be that replayability. Obviously, it's not going to be as big. Like, look at Among Us. Like, Among Us popped off hard. Like,
It went for a while, too.
yeah. And
I
they
still love to
haven't
play Among
added
Us. I think
stuff.
it's freaking great.
They haven't added anything.
I
really.
know. How long have we been waiting for that map?
Almost 3 months now.
It's been too long.
Anyways, but like I just want to throw this out there. I know we've been riffing into indie games between me and Noons and bouncing back and forth between you guys, but I want to throw this out there because Lil Nick came prepared today with a
Ooh.
list, and I would
He
like to
does have
hear
a
his list. Noons, did you hear? He's got a list.
He's got a list.
A
He's got
list?
A list?
A list.
Did somebody say list?
List.
Yes, a list.
What I listed in boating school is what I listed.
What's this
Give us
list?
that list. Give us that
Let's
giant
trade
Nick.
list until he starts talking.
Give it
Alright,
to us.
Lil Nick, whip out the list.
All right, the list is whipped out. So, pretty much, I just put like, in my opinion, or like games that stand out to me a lot for certain stuff. So, like the best RPG. Possibly, this isn't like my personal favorite, but I feel like it's good enough to be out there. Obviously, like Undertale / Deltarune.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only was that one of the most popular, but also one of the most unique ones, in my opinion, also. Because it
Yeah.
wasn't just, oh, I hit you, you hit me, back and forth. It's, I hit you, I have to move away from you and dodge all of your attacks, and then I get to hit you again.
And actually, like, interact with the character
Yes.
you're fighting. Yeah, it's really cool.
And that it has different, like, story routes and stuff.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have, like, the neutral route, the genocide route, the pacifist, and true pacifist. They all give you
Yeah.
different character interactions, and honestly, the music is just fire. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
I have a complaint about the soundtrack in the slightest. When it comes to best platformers, I would say these two games stand out to me the most. Super Meat Boy.
Oh my god.
That-
I haven't played that yet, but I
One
just
of-
love watching it be played.
I recently grinded it to get an A+ in every stage ever in the
God.
game. It was hard, but I did it.
Too easy.
And then Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures. You remember watching
I remember
me play
you telling
it.
me about, yeah, and showing me some.
That is probably one of the most difficult platformers. Like, even compared to Super Meat Boy. Just
Jesus.
how they execute it, not only just like a platformer, but you also have to shoot enemies, dodge lasers, make sure you can't step on certain blocks or like touch them or else they'll kill you. And just all the different levels being different themed around like the Angry Video Game Nerd. You don't have to watch it to like play the game.
Yeah.
But if you do watch them, and there's obviously going to be like throwbacks and stuff. And then rhythm games. In my opinion, one of my favorites, Crypt of the Necrodance.
Dance.
Hell yeah.
Oh, it's your boy. I knew it. That game is so good.
It honestly is also just the way it is. It's not just like a Dance Dance Revolution clone. It's not in the
It's really
slightest.
not.
Just
It's a dungeon. It's a freaking roguelike rhythm game. Like, how cool is that?
Exactly. That's what I like about it. A roguelike rhythm game dungeon crawler
Yeah.
where you have to move to the rhythm of the beat, and if you don't, then you get fucked over.
So I have a question. Is it also your favorite roguelike?
Honestly, it's up there.
Because this fool's never played Hades.
I have not.
That game will mess you up, but it is so much fun.
I was gonna say, like, every time we keep bringing up our favorite indie games, they're either a Metroidvania, a roguelite, platformer, side scroller kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty consistently.
Okay.
It
so
is.
this
I think I think indie games do fall under the trap of being roguelikes or platformers very consistently.
Okay, so
But
this
I
next
think
one.
it's because it requires a lot less resources.
Yes. So this next one. I don't think Vince would have brought it up. He probably could have. I don't think he would have. Life is Strange.
Oh,
Life
I
is-
forgot about
Wait a minute. 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 That's an indie game? Y'all
Yeah, it was-
consider that an indie game?
It was made by
It
Don't
isn't.
Nod Studios.
Squeenix.
Don't Nod's a pretty big studio.
But it is a Squeenix. Like
It was
Moon said.
published by Square Enix.
Yeah, but it's still part of promotional material for Squeenix.
No, Don't Nod's
much,
pretty
though.
big though.
Well, yeah. At the time, it was like relatively small.
Because I had a game in mind too, that was also made by Don't Nod Studios, which was Remember Me, because that
Don't
game
Nod
is
has
like
made quite a bit of games, honestly.
crazy. Like
Mhm.
graphics are awesome, and that game is like, if you've never played Remember Me, it's so good. You guys should check it out if you like Arkham Asylum type fighting games. But
I really love that game.
like beat 'em ups, it's really really good.
And
And
it,
the story's really cool.
they also
But
made
then it's
Vampire.
Nod and
They also made what?
Vampire. That vampire game, it's
They're not
super
an indie studio.
mediocre.
Get out of here.
yeah,
It's
I don't know if
very
they are.
mediocre.
They really come across as one because, like you said, like no one really like thinks about Don't Nod, right? So like the
I'm
difference
counting them
being
as
like
one.
a lot. I would argue that a lot of more people have heard of Supergiant Games at this point than Don't Nod. Well, maybe not since of Control, but like before Control, like
Do they also
no
do
one thinks
Control?
about Don't Nod. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the
Oh
ones who
my
make
God,
Control.
not indie
Exactly. Yeah,
studio. Get out of here.
I
So-
said indie game.
he did say indie game.
There you
So
go.
as I was saying,
For
Okay.
rudely interrupted.
I would like to interrupt a little bit longer and say that I've been trying to find out what my favorite indie game is, and every potential that I've gone through in my Steam library is either a roguelike or a platformer.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
funny because
I
mine's like
can't
a
argue
puzzle
with
game.
Because I was looking and I was like, oh, I'm a huge fan of Titan Souls, and I was like, oh, never mind.
Can I
And then
give
I
you
saw-
guys the best indie game
The best
right
one?
now?
Go for
Yeah,
it.
Go
the
for
best
it.
one, hands down. Are you ready?
League of Legends.
Portal.
World of Warcraft. Oh.
yeah.
Did you say World of Warcraft?
Dude,
No, I
Blizzard's
said
a small
Portal.
indie company.
No, I just heard this man say, wow.
Yeah.
World
I
of
said.
Warcraft.
You know what? We're going to get through this. Lil Nick, give us the rest of your list before I jump through
No,
this mic
Portal.
and beat the
There's
crap out of
no,
Nunes.
no one
No,
agrees
I
that Portal's the
100%
best.
agree with you. Portal's probably one of the most innovative indie games, even though it was produced
It's
by
a-
like a big company.
Yeah.
The way that they
No.
executed it-
The people who made Portal were just a small team brought on by Valve because they were trying something out, and then they said, "Oh, we like this. We'll demo it on our thing."
the Orange Box, my guy.
Yeah.
I know.
Y'all remember Orange Box?
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's something around that. I may not be exact, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah,
Like these people had
Orange
some
Box.
cool like side
Okay, so-
demo, right?
I wanna give some insight into how Valve makes games, by the way, because I learned this year. So Valve won't make a game unless they actually can innovate something in the industry, and that's why there hasn't been a new Half-Life game besides Half-Life Alyx, because each Half-Life game was in its own way an innovation in that genre of game. And that's why they don't produce games as much, because if it's not going to be something wow and innovative, they don't want to put it out.
Did someone just say, "Wow"?
World of Warcraft.
Nunes, I swear
Is-
to God, I know where you live.
Oh, man.
I have another indie game that I really like that like I don't think you guys have played, but a couple of you know that I really like it, which is 20XX.
Yeah, that was
Isn't
another
what that
game
is.
I was gonna put on that I thought about putting on the list. I was like, Vince is gonna talk about it because of 30XX coming out.
Yeah,
But I
it's
have
in
a
early access.
question. Will we ever see the end of Little Nick's list?
Yeah, we're going
Probably not.
through right now. Go next.
Go. Next.
Most challenging.
Oh.
It's a tie between Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures and a game called Super Hexagon that I really enjoyed. It's one of the most basic concepts, but it's pretty freaking hard. Also, the soundtrack's just fire. Dude, I swear, I can't pronounce his last name, but he did like the music for Super Hexagon. He did Crypt of the Necrodancer. He did he's done a lot of Super Meat Boy. He did the Super Meat Boy soundtrack. He's done so many indie game soundtracks, and they're all just so good. And that's where it comes to best soundtrack. And I put Undertale up there because of
It's freaking good.
it's just so good.
How can you not?
Undertale, Deltarune, both those games are just so good.
Yeah.
Like, I recently played Deltarune again on my Switch. Dude,
Banger.
all the music is just so good.
Straight
Like I said, I
banger.
don't think that there's like one song from like Undertale or Deltarune where I don't necessarily like it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's like always like the favorites, but there's no bad song when it comes to Undertale or Deltarune. And then-
what I've heard from Undertale / Deltarune is phenomenal, and I won't argue otherwise.
100%.
Also, I took a second and I typed in indie into Steam.
Wait, I still want to hear the rest of this list.
Yeah, so we'll get to
Keep
my
going.
thing after.
I love Undertale, by the way. I love the music in that game. And I love that game. I think it's a really awesome game. It's a hard game. It's a beautiful game. That well written. If you've never played it,
It's one of the funniest games, also, especially Deltarune.
hilarious.
It's definitely one of those games where when you're playing it for the first time, you will laugh, like no
It is
matter what.
Hilarious, comma high, because, whew, love it. Keep
And then-
going down the list.
And then for the most replayable, I put Crypt of the Necrodancer because of how hard the game is. Like it's not like super difficult like Super Hexagon or Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures, but it is definitely a trial and error because of it's very based off of luck, honestly. Like you can survive with just like your dagger, but honestly, you have to rely on what you find in like the chests on the
Yeah.
map, or like what you're able to get in the shop before you go into that world, and it's all random. You won't know what it is, like at all.
Yeah, it's a roguelike.
And the shops, yeah, and it's roguelike, so it's just difficult in general. I've gone to the 4th level when there's 5. The 5th one was a DLC. But on consoles, I think they threw it in there for free. But
That's freaking awesome.
yeah, just the way I'm gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna check how many hours I have on it, because honestly,
Dude.
I've put so many hours into it. It's
while
it's
you
just a
look-
very basic concept.
Let me
While
tell
you
you
look for
about-
your hours. I have a couple of indie games.
I found it out.
found it out and go.
I have, so on the PC version, I have 43 hours, and on my Switch version, I think I have 10 hours.
That's pretty good.
Just
That's
for
pretty
a
good.
basic roguelike game.
A roguelike, yeah.
If we're just putting in some hours and like our ratios for indie games, I actually have more hours spent playing indie games than I do AAA games on Steam.
I probably do too.
I think
do
I have
too.
I think I have somewhere in the ballpark of like 700 hours just for indie games.
Sonic Adventure 2, best indie game.
Indie. That's what I'm saying.
Have over 150 hours in that beast.
Anyways, I'm not deterring from
Just Steam
the conti-
version.
Anyways, hit us up with the rest of the list.
All right, so finishing off, honorable mentions for some of the best games. I put Phasmophobia. I put Limbo and Inside.
Oh,
Together.
So good.
Both of those games are just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah, they are like platformer type games, but just how well executed they are, just they're up there definitely. Like I'd say both of them are like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
The next is Life is Strange. I'm putting all of them together. Like Life is Strange, Before the Storm, and Life is Strange 2. I haven't played Life is Strange 2, but from what I've seen of it, it is a well executed story, just like the original. And Before the Storm definitely is the exact same feeling as the original, just added more.
Real quick.
And then I put Lethal League. I mean,
Lethal League's cool.
Team Reptile, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, for a fighting game that is not even fighting,
It's so
that's
cool.
pretty cool.
It's
It is.
cool that
Especially
it's
Lethal
like
League
timing
plays.
based. Like it's awesome. Yeah, I really like that game.
And then for the last one, which is a game that I think all of us, well, I know that me and Vince have been playing like a bit recently. For the King.
For the
For
King
the
is
King.
fun, dude.
Like at first when we started playing, like we understood the game, but we didn't like understand the game.
Yeah.
And then I think now, if we were to hop on right now, I feel like we could go for hours without
Yeah,
having
that
any
game's freaking
problems.
Fun. Yeah. That's a fun game.
100%.
Very
Like,
cool.
I haven't had that much fun with the game
Yes.
recently since like Phasmophobia came out and was like huge.
Shit.
And that's like 100% honest. But
I like it.
I could go on talking for some more, but I want to hear you guys' opinions on some games or just some of your favorite games.
All right. I don't know if some of these are considered indie. But I'm a big fan. Final Fantasy 13.
13's fire.
All right, indie. Tales of Berseria, indie.
Okay, I'll agree when it comes to Tales games. I would say I wouldn't say like those are indie games, but
I know.
they're on the same spectrum.
I'm
my
just
opinion.
kidding. I know they're not indie games. Legit though, legit. I really don't know if this is considered indie, but Dead by Daylight.
I honestly
don't
I
know
would
who makes
consider
Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight an indie game,
It's freaking fun.
especially
And
when
it's
I
freaking great.
when I first showed you Vince, I was like, "Yo, look at this game. It's called Dead by Daylight.
It's freaking
Like,
great.
let's play it." And
I
this
have
was back when it was-
157 hours in that game.
I have no clue how many I have. I'm gonna check real quick.
Pretty
But
good.
me and you, like, so we started playing on your account since you bought it first,
Yes.
and then we played it on your account for a while, and then I convinced Aaron to do like half and half for his account because I didn't have a PC at the time, and then my account I have 156 hours.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're an hour apart. How awesome.
So
That's so
that
great.
we've been playing since 2015,
Forever.
2016.
Forever,
Since it was
yeah.
since it was in the very first like Steam Greenlight beta.
Yeah. We've
thing.
been rolling with that bad boy.
And
Another
yeah,
one is Stanley Parable. I said that already, but it's so good. It's like the best 4 hours you'll ever spend of your life. Like,
besides Firewatch.
absolutely not. Don't play Firewatch. We still don't like Firewatch. That's not a game we play. Do not play Firewatch. Not a good game. The journey is not always the best part of the story. Get over it. I had another one. I can't think of it anymore. It's gone. Poof.
I've been sitting on this joke for 20 minutes.
Sit. Lay it out.
So, Don't Nod Studios, their newest thing is free to play. It's episode 1 of Tell Me Why. It's called Tell Me Why.
All right,
I saw
guys,
that and I
good
was like, oh,
show.
fuck. All
Well,
right,
I
sweet.
guess that's the end of the show. I don't get to share my list. We'll catch you guys next
No,
week.
that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. We're not ending there. We're not ending there.
Oh, okay. So here's.
I have another one. I'm not done. I'm not done. One Step from Eden.
That game looks
Really
pretty
good.
fire.
That game's awesome. Great music, super cool, wonderful, and one we all really enjoy. I think. Risk of Rain.
Risk of
Hello?
Rain. Oh my.
I'm a little
Hello?
like I was sitting here listening to Little Nick's list, and I was like, "Why? Why isn't it on here? It better be on.
So-
it better be at the end.
so
of it. Why
I-
isn't it on here?
I thought of it, but I knew that you or Vince would talk about. Like I said, I planned for some games for you guys to talk about. I don't want to talk about every single freaking indie game that we've played.
no, I understand.
I wanted to personalize my list.
To be honest, it wasn't on my list.
Here's another one. I want to know if you guys consider this an indie game or not. Sonic Mania.
Yes.
100% indie game.
Okay. Just want to make
Isn't
sure.
that isn't the whole point of Sonic Mania that it's an indie game?
Your
Like,
boy
yeah.
Christian Whitehead, dude.
Anyways,
Yes, but Sega did pick it up, right? So
but only after it was like what 90% finished, and they were like,
yeah.
"Yes, we did
so-
this. Let's put our name on it before anyone finds out."
Well, no, it wasn't like that, but they saw like the ideas coming together, and like Sega was on board, right? So they said, but you can do it as long as you do this.
Oh my. I just saw some. I hate to cut you off. Witch-It.
Which is super freaking fun. I love that game. We need to
Dude,
play that game.
We need to set up a night for everyone to
Tonight,
play
right now.
Witch-It.
Let's go. Everybody get
Um,
on. Let's
Okay,
play.
we'll do that.
Legit
My
though,
list,
I think like
most important
oh, go
here.
go go.
My list is clearly the most important, and I would like to goddamn talk about it. I'm gonna go real quick here. Stardew Valley.
World of Warcraft. And
Stardew Valley is so good.
Stardew Valley.
I own
Monster-
it. Never
Hey,
played
da,
it.
da, da, da. Don't you interrupt my list. I'll kill you. Stardew Valley. Monster Prom. Ghost Runner. Cuphead.
Ghost Runner's good.
Armello. And the ultimate indie game of all time. League of Legends.
Gonna
And
have
this is
to
my
stop
TED
you
Talk. I'll
there.
catch you all later.
Yeah. I'm
Gonna
gonna
have
stop
to-
you there too.
Cuphead, not an indie game.
100%
League of
an indie
Legends is
game.
just trash.
League of Legends is a mod.
League of Legends is a mod.
Oh shit, you guys got me. Anyway,
But I
so-
will say-
okay.
We did forget. I
fixed
forgot a
my
few. I have a
list.
couple. I have a couple.
And 90% of my list, my actual list, is all roguelikes. And I hate it.
Gris. If you haven't played Gris, Gris is really good. What's the other one I just had in my head?
Celeste?
Celeste is really good.
Platformer.
Frick, I forgot it.
Child of Light?
Child of Light is not an indie game.
Is it not?
Am
But
I the
it's
only
really
one?
good, nonetheless.
Am I the only one here playing Valheim?
You might be.
You
I haven't
might be.
touched that game yet.
I
but I've
have
seen how
it.
popular
I turned it on. I stared at the opening menu and said, "Today's not the day for that. I'll get around to it."
I remember Journey.
Good game.
Oh, yeah, Journey.
Journey's fantastic. If you
want
just love a
more.
good chill game, this is the recommend indie game episode where we don't really talk about the importance of indie games, but why we just
Yeah, we
games
did
you
that
should
earlier.
We did, in fact, try to address. We gave a great episode, and that's me
I
being
agree.
a little bit up my own
In the
ass
last
there.
5
Snob.
minutes, I'm gonna tell you why indie games are important. Look, indie games are important because
Hollow Knight.
because of Hollow Knight. And if that's not reason enough, no. But they're important because it seems like the people who should be taking the risk with all their money aren't taking the risk, minus like Nintendo,
Yeah.
and like aren't getting creative with their ideas, and they're kind of playing it safe is the word. They're not making bad games as far as playing it safe. Indie studios are the ones taking the risk and trying to stick out and be something different, which is really awesome. And that's why you should support your indie games that you really like, because, we want more creative games, and that's what they're there for. To like,
Yeah.
if we can get these big Undertales every other day, like maybe bigger studios will be like, oh, maybe we can start trying to do cooler things and less samey stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Agreed.
big studios they're just gonna let indie developers take all the risks and then buy them out after they're done taking their risks and getting big, and getting big, and then force them to churn out the same thing 3 more times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a rain cloud. Risk of rain cloud. Risk of rain? Risk of Rain 2, not an indie game. There you go.
Risk of Rain 2, not an
Got
indie
there.
game.
Gearbox.
No, I 100%.
Gears of More.
I think the
Indie
big
game.
thing with indie games taking all those risks is that we do see some incredibly refined, not just creative or innovative, but we see all these different genre stylings that are becoming refined. You know, like Hollow Knight feels maybe not like the pinnacle of Metroidvania games, but dang near close, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Risk of Rain does the general idea of roguelikes so well. It feels like a great opener for people to play roguelikes. Because after I played,
not an opener.
I think it gives like a great starting point for a lot of people to know what they're getting into with those games. Like
Hades is a good opener for
I don't
roguelikes.
think I'd suggest Hades.
Risk of Rain 2 is for a seasoned roguelike player.
I don't think so. I wouldn't suggest anyone to play Darkest Dungeon or Hades first. Like Hades has
Darkest
got a great
Dungeon
story,
is definitely not.
but someone who's not used to like getting good may not vibe with Hades because the story is partially locked behind you getting good.
Yeah,
you know?
but
and that's like a great driving point.
So can
But
you really say that Risk of Rain 2 is much more new player friendly than Hades?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
No
100% I think
There's
so.
4 levels on Hades.
There's 5 on Risk of Rain 2.
5.5.
Yeah,
and a half?
But okay, but like
the
here's
skill
the thing,
you
but
need
here's
to
the,
beat Risk of Rain versus Hades is a world of a difference.
see, but Risk of Rain 2, it doesn't lock anything from you except for like the characters and stuff, and that's achievement, and that makes you feel good for achieving those things, right? The story in Hades is entirely locked behind making it past those 4 stages.
But
each one of those stages
but you
is
don't
like-
have to beat them. You just have to keep going.
And that's the thing about Risk of Rain 2 is that you also just have to keep going. The thing about Risk of Rain is that you could pick it up and play it and goof off and never feel like you're not learning.
I'm not saying it's not fun to play. I'm saying in terms of like a user-friendly experience, Risk of Rain is definitely for someone who knows how to play games.
I don't...
Versus Hades.
It would be kind of
It is
difficult
a
to
shooter.
figure out that you have to set up a proc chain with the different items. So if you can secure an item in the try shop to help move along your proc
Okay.
chain.
So I understand that. I do. But if I handed you Hades and I said just play it, and you played it, do you really think you would really get into roguelikes through Hades?
Yes. Versus some okay, if
Your
someone
yes
handed
seemed
me
casually
if you handed okay, let me put it this way. If you handed a girl who's never played a roguelike, video games in general, if you handed her Risk of Rain 2 and you handed her Hades, which one's going to get her into roguelikes?
Neither.
Yeah, neither. Slay the Spire will get her into roguelikes.
Okay, well, we don't consider
Hearthstone
that
will
like
get her
the
into
traditional roguelike.
roguelikes.
What? Yes, it is. You have to climb a tower.
Well, that's a card game. You have to be into like card
No,
games.
okay, so like getting people into roguelikes is very subjective. Right?
It's hard.
Why I say Risk of Rain is because Risk of Rain feels so general.
Yeah, but
And
at
that's
the same time,
why.
it has so much more depth
But
in
that's
how you
depth
play it.
that you yourself can get into.
And it's not
Like,
like
if you
it's not
choose to
like
get into
Hades
it.
where like you can like
there's
mess
so
up your
much-
way through it.
There's
right? Like you
so
can't
much
you
in
have
Hades,
to like get good.
but there's so much depth in Hades.
You're right. But it's still easier,
Also
way
learning
easier